One of the most popular videos that I've ever recorded, like time and time again, every month, I look at my insights, which blog posts are performing the best, time and time again. The one that shows up is It's Not About the Money. And I can link to that if you want to check that out. I'll put it in the show notes. But that's a lot of what we're talking about today. This concept. We're going to talk about gratitude, money, faith, um, prosperity gospel, some of those things. We're kind of like pulling back the curtain and looking at the intent behind these. So I'm really excited for this episode. Let's just dive in. Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Your Money, Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Aimee Cerka. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm super excited. Like the Christmas tree is not done, but like I got a Christmas tree in my office this year. So yay. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll put a picture in my story so you get to see it too. Let's talk today about giving and abundance. And this is important. It's a little bit, okay. Let me back up. I shied away from talking about this for a long time because myself, I'm a Christian. I'm very, we talk about this inside the academy. It's not something that I've ever hidden, but it's not something that I've openly talked about all the time and like my stance on these things and where I'm showing up from. Because if you're a Christian, you've probably heard this. There's a lot of like mm, judgment, I guess you can call it, like prosperity gospel. And if anybody talks about these things, it's like, ooh, shame you're talking about prosperity gospel and like polarizing. There we go. It's a very polarizing topic. And I shied away from it because it's like, I don't want, and this might sound bad, but I don't want to waste my time arguing with people who don't understand where I'm coming from. And if you're going to quickly judge things, like that's not, I don't need to spend my time there. That might sound bad, but like that's the honest truth. And I'm here to be honest for you, right? But it was good client and friend, Ota. She's been on the podcast several times. We were on a call, and we had finished up like the coaching call. We were just chatting at the end, as friends. And let's see if I can not get emotional talking about this. She started sharing, was put on her heart, like about how I needed to talk about this more, about how important this was, and how many people were missing out because this is such a polarizing topic and it's afraid to be talked about, afraid to be wrong in so many different areas. So the desire showed up there to begin to talk about it. And then there were several things that happened. My church ended up doing a series on gratitude, and I was like, yes, like this is in money, gratitude and money, the way those things align. And it was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about. So then I've guested on a couple podcasts now talking about this, and I had planned this episode really almost like last week. That would have been a great timing for it to go live. But there's a lot of like money pressure, sales, all those things around Black Friday. If you're listening in the future, this episode is going live the week after. Actually, I think this is Giving Tuesday. Isn't that what this is called? Anyways, the time is finally here now for me to be able to talk to you about this. So I'm gonna quit. Think you got enough backstory, right? Let's talk about money and giving out of abundance and faith and how those all align. And just my request to you is listen with an open ears, open heart as well. Because what I found time and time again is truth rings sweet to the ears, but it might sting a little bit first. Okay. When we're giving, and let's see, giving in this context here doesn't necessarily just have to be to the church. This can be giving in any manner. We talked about several different options before, Wealth Wednesday, 10% of all proceeds that come into my company go to Operation Underground Railroad to help fight against child sex trafficking. Those are all giving. Okay. So it's releasing to those who are in need, whether this is you're sewing into your church facility, you're sewing into another organization, or you're just giving to somebody in need. All of those things count. I never want you to do it out of obligation. There is so much joy and happiness that can come when, yes, you can see rewards from giving, but being the cheerful giver. We talk a lot about this, like the emotions of the money, right? Like not just the tactical, tangible. We're not just giving to get something back. Okay. You're giving to give and to be a generous person and to sow back and to give more. And if you receive something back tangibly, fantastic. But at a minimum, you're going to feel better about yourself. Okay. So it's not out of obligation. We do this and then we get to see benefits. We get to see rewards. Okay. Because when we set our hearts, when we solve the emotions, when we figure out the money thing, this is why I talk about this, right? We are content. So you've probably heard, the verse, the love of money is the root of all evil, right? When you're worried about money, this is where it comes from. Like having money isn't a bad thing. We talk all the time about like $20 bill isn't going to jump up and smack you, okay? What you do with it, how you even more than that though, more than just what you're doing with your money, how you feel about the money is so important. This is why we solve the emotion because if you're in your heart, in your head, you're stressed about money. It doesn't matter what's going on tangibly. How do you feel? And what I found is when we set this giving, this abundance, this expectation, even when things are tight, we'll get to how much, like, I'll give you my example because I know you love the tactical. What we do when you're doing these things and it's tight, it doesn't matter what the tactical is, like your heart behind it. Are you being generous and trusting and having faith that things are going to work out. Okay. When you get to that place, well, in order to get to that place, we kind of have to work, not really kind of, we have to work on the whole it's never enough. We need a little bit more, okay? So like we hit this goal, maybe you're at $100,000, right? And you're just like, if I could just get to 120, then we would be set. If we could just get to that next level, then we'd be set. It's never enough. It's always a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I'll be honest, a lot of this is why I have struggled with talking about like specific tangible deadlines in like my offers and what we're talking about and what we're going to create because I know you can create more success where you're at now. It doesn't have to be the next income level. The income happens because we take care of the other part. So, if we'll give a tactic step here real quick. If you're feeling like it's never enough and you just have to have a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Oh, Aimee, but inflation. Oh, but this. If I could just do this, then we'll get to the next level, right? If you're feeling that, I want you to write down, we'll keep it easy on you, 25 things that you're thankful for that you're able to do at this current income level right now. Time yourself. How long does it take to get it done? Let me know on Instagram. I'd love to hear how long it takes you to get this done because the faster we can get through these exercises, the more forefront your gratitude and your thought process is, the better things work. Starting out, it might take you a little bit while. If this is a different practice, a different exercise for you, it can be a bit of a challenge. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have to start somewhere, but that's like my first tactic challenge for you. Okay. We all know that, like, we all know money doesn't solve all problems. Okay. Money doesn't guarantee you to be healthy. You can still get sick. Money doesn't guarantee that you'll have great relationships. Often, in fact, that is one of the things that can be a money mindset block. This is a little bit of a side note again. So, growing up, if you had no loved one, somebody close to you had a lot of money but didn't have great relationships, you can tie the fact that if I had a lot of money, then I'll have bad relationships. Just side note. Curious to see if you see that pattern for yourself. But we know that money doesn't guarantee that you have these things. But when we take care of the money, your intent behind it. You have the gratitude over what you have. That when we take care of those things, then you're not worried about it. So, not being worried about the money, definitely helps your health. Not being worried about the money definitely helps your relationships because you're not snapping at your loved ones because you're stressed about money. Okay. Let's get into some tactics. Tithing specifically, it's always up to you. I recommend a minimum of 10%. We always do a minimum of 10% personally, and then we give above and beyond that as well. But minimum first fruits, and we are enforcing this, starting this process with my kids as well. They've never really gotten an allowance specifically, and they're not getting an allowance still. That is not something that I believe in. This is another sidetrack, aren't we? But my kids are also participating this as well because I feel like the 10% is important. And we have done the 10% even when things were really, really tight. Even after Rusty was hospitalized, my husband. Even then, no matter what, I feel that it's important because for me, it's about being a good steward and having faith and doing the right thing, which I feel is the right thing. You get to take your own perspective on that. And again, within the programs and the budgeting simplified and the prosperity simplified and inside Money Mastery Academy, I'm not telling you that you have to do these things. I want you to be able to look at it and reflect and see and make an educated, informed gut instinct decision, not a logical one. This is about your heart. Again, we're not giving to get. We're giving out of obedience and faith. We've talked about this reveals the truth about like your heart. This will reveal the truth about your heart, where your intentions are at, where your priorities are at, where your faith is at. And quick, this is an episode full of side notes again. Quick side note yet again. This does not mean that there's not going to be tough moments. We are still human. We still have our full range of emotions. We have money mindset stories that trigger us for all different things. And let's see. Next week? Nope. 2 weeks. I'm going to share some behind the scenes of one of my tough moments that happened recently. But don't beat yourself up if you have bad moments, okay? We're removing ourselves from that comparison of, oh, this family gets to do this gets to do this. I don't have enough, or I don't have enough to give. That enough, like feeling, do I have enough, or I don't have not enough, or I have not enough. There we go. We can talk. That lens, enough, not enough, is what we call it when I'm coaching. So if you're removing the enough, not enough, if I don't have enough to give, or we're just giving from the enough. This is also why we talk about doing the percentage-based budgeting, including your giving when you first get paid. So you're doing it out of abundance, not the leftovers. Because if we wait until like, next payday and, oh, I'll just give what's left, that's not the first fruits if you're looking at this from a biblical perspective. But it's also not ensuring that you're prioritizing what's important to you. We covered quite a bit today. I want to give you time to think about that. But one last note, if you're still thinking like, okay, but I don't want to be somebody who's like prosperity gospel, prosperity gospel. We are not doing these things to just receive like, a life without struggle. This is why it's the unstoppable finances framework, because I know that stuff is going to come up. It's happened to me. It's happened to you, and it's going to happen again. So when the next thing shows up for you in your life, that next hurdle, that next stumbling block, whatever it might be, what are you going to do then? Are you unstoppable? That it doesn't matter. You're going to keep going because you know the end destination of where you're working towards. This is where, when you set yourself up to figure out the money thing and operating from a place of gratitude and a place of faith, you are unstoppable. And the prosperity gospel says, like, we'll have like all this income and there's not going to be problems, and you are entitled to this high life. We are called to be blessed, to be a blessing. That doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen. And that's the thing that I think most people mess up. Because if you're in the middle of a tough time, or if you don't have this like overly abundant, you don't feel like you have this a bunch of prosperity. Like, you do though. Look at where you're at. Look at your life. You do have these things already, but it's not guaranteed that it's going to be always like that. We do these things to be a blessing, to be an example, to give out of gratitude. When you do the things that you're supposed to with the right heart, yes, things can come back on you, but it's not guaranteed again. But when you figure out the money thing, when we create that heart of gratitude, that abundance, you're not worried about the money, you're doing the things that you need to when you need to do it, then you're in a place where you can live a life of your priorities and truly live a life of your priorities. Because if I asked you right now what your priority is, I'm betting work isn't like one of the top things, but where do we spend most of our time? For most of us, work. So let's work. Let's work on working. Wow, that was really great. Let's work on doing the things that we need to so we're not stressed about the money. So if we looked again at that time wheel, what are you spending the most amount of your time thinking about? The money? Then we have work to do. Then it can be your family, it can be your faith, those things that are important to you, the impact that you're giving when we stop worrying about the money. Okay, I want to hear your thoughts on today's episode. Let me know on Instagram. Let me know if we need to dive into this more. That's it for now. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Your Money, Your Life podcast. Wondering what's next? When you're ready, there are different levels of support that you can use on the path to creating unstoppable finances and your unstoppable life. After all, your finances are unique and your support should be too. Ultimately, we'll create a customized plan to ditch financial struggle for good that works for you, your goals, your priorities, your life. Go to workwithaimee.com to get started with one of our most popular programs, or you can book a Q&A call with me and we'll figure out what your next step should be.